This is greytFM. greytFM.
Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Ahalya, keeping you company on another edition of greytFM, greytHR's official podcast series. And today we're getting a little psychological. I want to take a minute to paint a picture for all of you because I think it's one that we've all found ourselves in before, right? So imagine this, your day starts, you make your to-do list, you start striking things off that list, you think you're on a good track, and then all of a sudden you lose all motivation and have half your to-do list left, and you go to sleep wondering, how did I get here? How did this even happen? Now take this picture, multiply it by 100, 1,000. Think of every single person in an organization maybe having this problem on one day or another. What happens then? How does this affect a company and business? I'm not the first person asking this question. It was a problem identified a long time ago, and luckily some people took the time to answer it. The application of psychology to workplace behavior, habits, and organizational behaviors, that's the school of industrial psychology. But isn't the productivity chase an outdated one? We're looking at all of this in today's conversation, and to help us talk about it, dissect it, is Soyrindhi Hore, lead APAC and EMEA Benefits, Yahoo. Hi, welcome to the show.
Hey, hi, Alia. Thanks for having me here.
Lovely to have you here, and let's dive right in, Soyrindhi. So I think it's good if we start right at the beginning. It's a simple question, but probably has a very complicated answer. How is industrial psychology different from the general application of behavioral studies in the workplace? Why is it such a specific, classification of psychology?
Wow, that's a very interesting question. So firstly, I think industrial psychology, to put it very plainly, it's more to do, it's an actual science, right? It's a psychological science. And we have seen that right from a very early stage, the science actually has a lot of principles. It has a lot of research tactics and a lot of various things which is used to solve workplace problems, and also looks at improving, the overall employee experience. Also, this, I would say definitely it's different from general application because industrial psychology is more about, a lot of observation, a lot of analysis, which goes into truly understanding what brings about workplace productivity. It's also something to do with how best do you acclimatize yourself to the company environment? How do management teams, how is their collaboration between management teams? There's a lot of focus on looking at how do you devise long-term business plans and also keep the bottom line going. And so industrial psychology is a huge piece. It's not something which is very limited to general application because it is a science at the end of the day. So that's my 2 cents about this topic.
Okay, fantastic. I think that's a great launch point for the rest of the conversation today. Interestingly, the school of psychology became really popular. When we're talking about recent times in 2019, 2020, I think it was all part of that productivity chase. And then came the pandemic. So my question is also, has its relevance increased since then or decreased? And for whichever case, why?
Yeah, honestly, I think that its relevance has definitely, it's much greater now than it was any time before.
Okay.
Because, especially considering that there's so much of enormous focus nowadays, right now, on the entire wellness piece, especially on mental health and wellness. So I think even before, I know psychology has always been a very popular topic. It's also been a very sidetracked topic even before. But because of the pandemic and because of the kind of experiences that many employers and employees have had during this entire, this whole tumultuous time, and there are so many things right now which actually are so interdependent, especially on an employee's productivity and efficiency, because it's no longer just about professional development. What I feel and what I sincerely believe is that there is a lot more focus today on the psychological aspect of it. Like, how do you really train an employee's mind into thinking not just from a company standpoint in terms of the bottom line and driving revenues, but there is so much of personal development required. And right now, nothing is personal anymore, to be honest. And more than ever right now, I think there is an enormous need for therapists. There's so much of focus on empathy, and there's so much of focus on, like I was saying before, on mental health and wellness. So definitely the relevance has increased because people are becoming more and more aware of the nuances of this field and how it can actually go about changing the entire employee experience, to put it plainly.
Okay, that's definitely something I think we've all been experiencing ourselves in the workplace, and that in itself is a testament to what you just explained. Now, is this school of psychology or approach to workplace management something that actually gives HR professionals the upper hand? Is it something you would recommend that HR professionals, maybe do a course in or get exposed to or study closely?
Yeah, in fact, I think employee experience is definitely the overall need of the hour, right? So for HR professionals, the whole concept of this has to be understood, because there's no longer a lot of emphasis on just on what is urgent, and what the whole concept of urgency is not something which is the only thing which drives people. Right now, businesses are actually starting to become more people centric in their approach. So it's not no longer the management only thinking about profitability and driving revenues. So for HR professionals, I think it's more to do with how you come up with a lot of innovative, ways of looking at your policies, in terms of what kind of different things you can do to keep the performance levels at a particular standard, but at the same time not overworking your employees. I think it's all in all, it's more of putting some of the best practices together and coming up with a plan in place which also sort of aligns with your overall people strategy, and also increases your employee experience. It just elevates it, takes it to the next level.
Right. So, my question to you also then is, given how much, we have emphasized employee experience just in the conversation so far, a big part of that is also coming to work and enjoying the work that you do. The idea of what a thriving workplace has changed over the years, right? Especially post-pandemic, I think we saw a little bit of critique or analysis around the entire productivity chase. Is this how you want to be approaching productivity? Are we just going to talk about getting the most out of people on a daily basis, or are we going to shift our perspective? Does industrial psychology fit into that, and how?
Yeah, I think you've said it right. There is a change in perspective. A lot more people are now talking about the entire employee wellness piece, which is automatically becoming one of the bigger priority areas for businesses. So now I think it's no longer about how do we drive results, or how do we drive revenues, or get or increase our bottom line. It's more about how do we make the entire employee experience, which would be a lot of things together. It's not just about, like I was saying before, it's not just about professional development or looking at upskilling. It's also a lot of things which depends on innovative leave policies, for example. What kind of benefits are we extending to our employees? I think in a recent NASSCOM report, which just came out last month on, what are the general salary trends and reward trends, benefit trends, which we're seeing in the market. I think more and more companies right now are obviously moving towards hybrid model, right? So the remote working model is something which we are seeing, and we are going to see that continue for a long time. So right now, companies want to look at what would be the best way to give their workforce the best experience. So that could be even to do with some companies looking at 4-day working weeks, for example, compressed work hours, offering more flexibility and choice to the employee. So right now, I think it's more, the shift has definitely happened. There's a shift in perspective, shift in outlook, because people are no longer being treated like machines. You have to treat a person as a human being who does have probably the job front is there, but of course, if the person is not equipped mentally and personally, how is he or she going to perform on a day-to-day basis, right? So that's the kind of shift which I see, and that's why I think eventually makes a thriving workplace.
Now that we've sort of expanded the conversation a little bit, I also do want to ask you, has the scope of it changed? Have you seen it change right before your eyes? And what does it include, or what does it look like in 2023 as we speak today?
Absolutely. The scope has definitely increased. There are a lot more avenues, and generally organizational psychology now addresses more bigger picture issues.
Right.
So, psychologists, I think now, if you talk to anybody who's there in the science, they would definitely say that motivating the workforce being one, but also creating stronger teamwork. So if you sometimes feel you're not getting everything, out of your employees. But then organizational psychologists do help in a lot of different areas, so they study employee behaviors. They can look at attitudes, they can understand, they can gauge employee satisfaction. So all of these kind of findings and this research actually helps them suggest various ways to improve employees' well-being and happiness at work, which is actually the need of the hour. So, and the other thing which I just wanted to quickly mention is also that about job stress, which I actually wanted to talk about in the earlier question when we spoke of a thriving workplace. So the industrial side actually today examines the organization at different levels and focuses a lot more on leadership. So it's more to do as, not just about how employees function, but also about how are these businesses actually operating. So there are various helpful suggestions on how do you enhance and look at different managerial practices, something which doesn't work for the company before, but probably equipping some of our managers with those personalized skills, or even engaging managers with certain personality traits, which in a way also reduces the source of job stress. So these are some of the things which I think is really something which will be looked at, and not just in 2023 but even going forward.
Okay, perfect. So, to conclude the conversation before I hand the mic over to you, I also want to address the elephant in the room, which is AI at the moment, technology, AI, and how it can be leveraged to make the best of organizational or industrial psychology. Do you think it's going to sort of, again, expand the scope of the discipline, or do you think it might actually render it a bit redundant?
No, I think AI has always been there. It's not going to go away. And in the past 3-4 years, in fact, we see it a lot more. In 2017 to 19, I think there was a Forrester research which said that AI being in the organization would increase by 300%. And today, I think it's a much larger number than that. So definitely at the enterprise level, AI does increase operational efficiency. We cannot take that away from it. It also helps you to make more informed decisions, and also in terms of innovating new products and services. So in HR, if I were to say, AI has a lot of scope in terms of, say, for example, your recruiting activities. So it helps you in screening candidates and scheduling candidates. Also takes away some of the mundane tasks like new hire onboarding. So there are various apps right now for that. Of course, artificial intelligence in employee wellness is again something which I would definitely want to stress on, because AI does have the ability to impact the wellness industry, because some of the employee wellness programs are something which can be enhanced purely by personalization. So which means an employee can actually go on an app and then pick up certain things, put in their statistics, and then get a designed plan or diet plan or whatever, like an exercise program or a health awareness program just designed specifically for them. So that definitely helps. Also in terms of AI in performance management. So whether you want to enable your employees to automate certain things which are mundane or redundant, but also helping them concentrate on upskilling, on looking at tasks which bring out greater quality in their jobs, if I put it that way. So there are various opportunities for companies, and I think they can combine the insights that AI gives with a lot of maybe behavioral psychology with behavioral economics, if I were to put it that way.
Yeah.
So it does help, yes.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. I think it is going to be exciting to see how, the scope of the discipline continues to expand over the next couple of years, and what it actually includes, right? What are the areas of interest that we have to keep our eyes on? Fantastic. So now that we've come to, I think, a fair conclusion, which is that industrial psychology is still relevant in the workplace to some extent. And as it keeps evolving, so will the workplace. Over to you now. I do want to ask you, 3 industrial psychology beginner tips to boost motivation in the workplace, things that you think are just absolute staples that everyone can apply, both to their individual experience as well as on an organizational level.
Yeah, that's again a great question. So I think, again, this is something which is purely my views. Firstly, of course, you have to foster a culture which is a culture of creativity, and a culture which helps people to come out to work and innovate. Like in the sense, unless you do that, you would still be following the age-old processes and age-old ways of doing things. So the number one thing is, if you encourage a culture which is more creative and helps people to nurture their creative side, their innovative side, then we get a lot more people coming up with such ideas. And also, the second thing would be whether as an organization you're open to exploring different ways of using industrial psychologists. So today, I think in today's age, it's more about whether you really want to hire an industrial psychologist or maybe just get a consultant on board, a consultant who can actually go through some of your structures of the organization, look at where are the gaps, which are those places where you may need some additional resources or different ways of doing things. So that has to be the other thing, where you have to probably be open to hearing out an external opinion. And probably the third thing would definitely, I think, more to do with a systematic approach and having sometimes what happens is, now this is more to do with building diverse teams. Of course, diversity and inclusion is another big piece, which I think industrial psychology, if you inculcate that into your processes and systems, it does help. So if you want a deep level of inclusion work, that will require a systemic approach and a lot of systems thinking. So it also impacts your overall organizational decision making. So that's the third thing, which I would say that, probably another way of looking at how to, implement psychology into your overall work processes. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so very much, Soyrindhi, for joining us today on this edition of greytFM. It's been interesting to see, the relevance of the subject and how we can actually use it to take things further in the workplace, to shape, things on a cultural level. So thank you so much for joining us on greytFM.
Thank you so much. And it's been my pleasure, and nice to be talking on such an interesting topic too. Thank you.
Lovely. Well, soak it all up, folks. We'll be back with another podcast very soon. But I hope you made your notes, because this has definitely been an interesting conversation. I'll catch you on the next one. Adios.
This is greytFM.